Election Day. Long lines at the polls, as not even bad weather can keep millions from voting. We'll have reports from the all-important battleground states. The candidates, the president and first lady, cast their votes before returning to the White House to watch the returns. John Kerry rallying his troops one last time, then going home to Boston. And Web Gems, how politics and pop culture are crossing paths as never before.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News election headquarters on Democracy Plaza.
Good evening. It's decision time. Does America stay the course and re-elect President George W. Bush, or change the course and elect Senator John Kerry? That's the question that millions of voters are deciding tonight, and many of them have already made their choice. We'll not know officially the size of the turnout until the end of the evening, but based on everything that we're seeing in almost every state, the lines have been long, the voters have been determined and patient. These were just some of the lines in Florida, which were long, very long in some cases, even though this is a state with early voting and a heavy absentee vote. We're covering the campaigns tonight, the key states, and the voting problems. We're going to begin with NBC's David Gregory, who's with the president back at the White House. David?
And Tom, the president is in the residence tonight with family members watching the returns. Meantime, his political operation is in overdrive. Operatives doing talk radio, calling volunteers in the battleground states, encouraging them to get their people to the polls tonight before they close. Advisors concede they are disappointed by the recent narrowing of the polls, but they are keeping up the fight. After a marathon final day of campaigning, the president waved his supporters as he and Mrs. Bush woke up early to vote at a firehouse near their Texas ranch. Speaking to reporters afterward, Mr. Bush appeared subdued, but was eager to project optimism.
I'm very comfortable that I got my message out. The people know where I stand. You know, there's just something refreshing about giving it your all and then saying the people will make the right decision. And I believe I'm going to win.
Leaving Texas aboard Air Force One, the first couple lingered for a few more waves. But Mr. Bush, competitive until the end, was not quite through. By mid-morning, a final campaign stop in battleground Ohio. He thanked volunteers in Columbus working the phones to get voters to the polls and embraced the obvious passion for this election across the country.
I am for a turnout as big as possible. I believe everybody should vote.
Later, making a personal pitch.
How are you? I promise you it's me. Thanks. God bless. 1-0.
The White House even tried to schedule the president for several satellite interviews with TV stations in Florida aboard Air Force One, but canceled because of technical problems in the Ohio rain. This afternoon, the first family returned to the White House to a rousing reception from aides. The president obviously drained, knowing all he can do now is wait. And tonight at the White House, just beyond the Oval Office, senior advisors have constructed a war room as these returns come in. They are preparing for a long night, but the president made clear today that with the whole world watching our democracy function, he said, he hopes that it is indeed over tonight. Tom.
Thanks very much, NBC's David Gregory tonight. For his part, just like the president, Senator Kerry campaigned into the early morning hours and then returned to his home base, Massachusetts. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is there with him tonight. Kelly?
Good evening, Tom. Senator Kerry is splitting time between his Boston home and offices. His campaign is set up at a hotel here. A noticeably different tone from the senator today, who appeared more relaxed, described himself as humbled by the process, and appeared to more publicly look beyond the election, saying whatever the result, he believes the country will be unified.
I'm very confident that we've made the case for change, the case for trust in new leadership, a new direction, a fresh start.
After his 2-year run for the White House, Kerry returned from the battleground states to Boston. The State House here is Kerry's polling place, Ward 5, Precinct 3. As he filled out the ballot, Kerry acknowledged the press corps at his back. Daughters Vanessa and Alex voted here too.
Thank you. I don't think anybody can anticipate or expect what it's like to see your name on a ballot for president.
While wife Teresa, the only Kerry voting in a battleground state, is registered in Pennsylvania and cast her vote there this morning. Kerry's election day began with 2 rallies after midnight, hitting Toledo, Ohio.
Today is decision day.
And La Crosse, Wisconsin. By this morning, some last-minute canvassing to get out the vote. Back in Boston, keeping with his own Election Day tradition, Kerry stopped for chowder and clams.
Senator John Kerry and Senator
The work still not done. His campaign scheduled satellite TV interviews with local stations in the key states until the polls close. Kerry expressed his desire that both the process and outcome will be clear.
I hope there won't be challenges. I hope America will vote according to the law today. That's what I want. I'm confident that's what the president wants.
And senior aides say Senator Kerry's putting together some thoughts about what he might say to supporters tonight. Meanwhile, Senator Edwards, who had voted early in North Carolina, spent this day campaigning in Florida. He will join Senator Kerry's family here later tonight as they greet supporters. And right now, aides to Kerry say they are focused on early voting results and some of their own internal polling, and they are expressing confidence, although it will be a long night to come. Tom?
Thanks very much. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell tonight. Then there are the voters, millions of them from coast to coast, braving long lines, in some cases nasty weather, and a few hitches to cast their votes today. Most of the attention is on the polls in those few battleground states. That includes Ohio and Florida. We'll get the view from both states again tonight, beginning with NBC's Ann Thompson, who's in Columbus, Ohio. Annie?
Tom, here in Columbus, Ohio's capital, voters waited as long as 2.5 hours today to cast their ballots. But so far, long lines are the biggest complaint of the day.
This was not a day to be in a hurry.
And you're in precinct G, straight ahead.
In Cleveland, where they use punch cards,
And they check hanging chads.
and Columbus, where they voted by machine, patience was a virtue.
Been here about an hour, hour and a half, hour 45, but it's cool, you know, I don't care. I'm ready for a change, so.
Republicans won an early morning victory when a federal appeals court ruled those controversial challengers would be allowed in polling places.
Children with drinks.
But for all the pre-election angst, there were only sporadic reports of political party representatives questioning voters' eligibility. Helping to keep an eye on things for the Democrats in Columbus, the Briggs brothers drove all the way from the nation's capital.
Because I think what happened in Florida was actually damaging to our country.
It is unfamiliar territory for Patrick, who is a contractor,
Some beautiful old houses here.
and Dennis, who is a county cop and former Marine. The brothers hit 15 polling places by mid-afternoon
How long you guys been waiting?
and say they found few signs of voter intimidation.
From all the rumor and speculation that we heard prior to coming out here, I was worried about that, but I'm really glad to see that that's not the case.
And it wouldn't be a day in Ohio without a court challenge. Today, a federal judge ruled that the state must give provisional ballots to those who tried to vote absentee but didn't get their ballots in time. Now for the latest from the battleground state of Florida, let's go to NBC's Kerry Sanders in Fort Lauderdale. Kerry?
Well, Ann, there's only a short period of time before the polls close here in Florida. Then the ballots will be brought to locations like this where they will be counted. In Florida, where 4 years ago there were so many problems, this election is not only about the close race for president, it's also about the election process itself and whether it works. It appears so far so good. Long lines, but few problems in Florida today. In Tampa, the wait to vote was up to 3 hours.
Anybody have any questions while you're waiting?
After the morning rush, a surprise, short lines. The reason? 1 in every 5 registered Florida voters cast their ballots early.
I was in front of the machine about 3 minutes total. Done.
In Fort Lauderdale, Bob Kiley arrived at 11:55 a.m., walked to his polling station, 5 minutes later was voting. 4 minutes at the touchscreen machine, he was on his way home.
Very easy, very simple. I mean, you know, if people can't figure that out, I don't know how easy you can make it, really.
In Palm Beach County, where much of the 2000 election melted down.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Supervisor of Elections Teresa Lepore says she's confident this time it'll go differently. There were isolated problems with Florida's new touchscreen voting machines. In St. Petersburg, Roberta Harvey says every time she tried to vote for Kerry, the computer selected Bush. Poll workers confirm it took repeated tries before it worked correctly.
I hope that it was an electronic malfunction. That's my hope. As opposed to something a little more devious.
And that is the test. Will this new technology work? With 50% of the voters using touchscreen technology across the state, a lot of eyes watching whether this new system works properly. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Kerry Sanders in Florida tonight. Joining me now here in Democracy Plaza, Washington Bureau Chief Moderator of Meet the Press, Tim Russert. Tim, we've been talking to the point of exhaustion about the battleground states. Let's talk about the voters within those states, the groups of them that are of concern to both campaigns, beginning with the Bush campaign. What worries them?
Tom, younger voters. Al Gore won younger voters 18 to 30, 48 to 46. George Bush, very competitive. If a lot of younger voters show up and they vote disproportionately for John Kerry, it can tilt those states. Secondly, white Catholics. How will those white ethnic Catholics turn out, for Bush or for Kerry?
And what about the Kerry campaign? Who are they worried about?
They're worried about Hispanics. George Bush got 35% of the Hispanic vote in 2000. Will he increase that? Black voters. George Bush got just 8% of African Americans. Can Bush increase that? And then the so-called gender gap. Al Gore carried women by 10 points. John Kerry's been not doing that well with those women, particularly married women with children. That's the group of concern.
Any split in married couples versus single couples?
Absolutely. That's the new gap we have seen. Singles preferring Kerry, married people preferring Bush. And when you look at Ohio and Florida, Tom, two diverse, distinct states with all these subgroups within them. It is wild.
All right, well, we'll have more detail on all that all during the evening. Let's turn now to NBC's Brian Williams, who's in our election tracking center. He's got information on what the exit polls are telling us about today's vote so far tonight. Brian, what do you have for us down there?
Well, Tom, thanks. We are getting the first real exit poll data, and we're looking at the basic question, what is the mood of the voters this year? We know it's a close election, and some of the first numbers from our NBC exit poll are bearing that out in terms of how President Bush is handling his job and about the direction of the nation in general. On the crucial, is the nation headed in the right direction or on the wrong track question, 50% of voters think the country is on the wrong track, while 47% think we are headed in the right direction. Statistically even. 4 years ago, the mood was much brighter, with 2/3 saying they were pleased with the direction of the country back then. One big difference from the last election is the issue, of course, of terrorism. We asked voters if they think we're safer from terrorism than when George W. Bush first took office, and they do, but not by a wide margin. 52% said they felt safer, but 43% felt less safe. As for President Bush's job approval rating, voters are still very closely divided on that. The president makes it above the halfway mark, barely. 51% approve, 47% disapprove of the president's job performance overall. One last note on the red state, blue state partisan divide on the president's job performance. It's about as wide as it could possibly be. 92% of Republicans give the president a thumbs up. 84% of Democrats give him a thumbs down. More to come as the night goes on. Tom.
Indeed. Thanks very much, NBC's Brian Williams tonight. Up next, our Election Day coverage continuing, making your vote count, the balance of power at stake today going beyond the White House, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. And later, what may be the most powerful political pundit of all. As we continue election coverage tonight, making your vote count, NBC Chip Reed joins me here in Democracy Plaza. He's also keeping track of the House and Senate for us. Chip, let's begin with voting problems.
That's right, Tom. We're keeping track of that NBC voter alert line. You can see it behind me, 1-866 My Vote 1, and it's been in operation now for about a week and a half, and we've received 136,000 calls. 89,000 of those calls have come from voters looking for their poll locations. That is vital. And 47,000 from people with complaints about voting. Now, most of those complaints have concerned registration, people who thought they registered, but apparently there's no record of it. Now, one interesting point, these electronic voting machines, a lot of experts thought they would be the big issue today. They thought there would be be huge numbers of complaints. We've received very few. Tom?
Chip, you cover the Congress for us. What can we expect before the end of the night based on what we're hearing from the campaigns about the United States Senate, where the Republicans now have a very narrow advantage?
Well, the Democrats had been talking for a long time about the possibility of taking back the Senate. They have a very slim chance of doing that. Let's take a look at how the Senate breaks down right now. 51 Republicans, 48 Democrats, and 1 independent who tends to vote with the Democrats. So effectively, it's 51 to 49. Now, there are 9 key Senate races here. Most of them are neck and neck, and the Democrats would have to win at least 6, maybe 7 of those races to take back control of the Senate. And here are a few of the states where the Democrats hope to pick up a seat. Colorado, where former Democratic Attorney General Ken Salazar is running against beer magnate Pete Coors. Alaska, former Governor Tony Knowles faces incumbent Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski. And Kentucky, a bit of a surprise here, Democrat Don Monjardo has a small chance of knocking off Baseball Hall of Famer and Republican Senator Jim Bunning. But Republicans are also hoping to gain some seats. They want to increase their margin. They think they're going to. Their big target, of course, is Senate Democratic leader Tom Daschle of South Dakota. He's being challenged by Republican John Thune. Republicans also hope to pick up a seat in Florida, where Mel Martinez is taking on Democrat Betty Castor. And they're hoping to win in North Carolina, where Republican Richard Burr faces former Bill Clinton Chief of Staff Erskine Bowles. Interestingly, that contest is for the seat of retiring Senator John Edwards, who, of course, is running for vice president. Now, the House of Representatives is more solidly Republican, 227 to 205 with 1 independent. Earlier, there had been a lot of talk from House Democrats that they might take back the House, but the Republicans are now widely expected to maintain control. Tom.
All right, thanks very much, Chip Reed. A lot of information there. We'll be checking back during the course of the evening. And when we come back, some of today's other news, including the latest on Iraq and caught on tape, an exceptional eruption. Iraq Watch tonight. Stepped up violence as American forces prepare for what is expected to be a full-scale assault on the rebel stronghold of Fallujah. Two car bombs exploded today in Baghdad and in Mosul, killing at least a dozen people. 8 of those deaths came in a busy Baghdad neighborhood when a car slammed into concrete barriers protecting the education ministry. Also today, a threat from kidnappers of aid worker Margaret Hassan. They say that they will turn her over to the al-Qaeda group run by terrorist Abu Musab al-Zarqawi within 48 hours if the British government does not meet their demand to pull its troops out of Iraq. On Wall Street today, the Dow was down almost 19 points on Election Day. NASDAQ, however, was up almost 5 points at the end of the day. And a volcano beneath Iceland's biggest glacier is erupting for the first time in 6 years. The pictures are very dramatic. Gas and thick black ash billowing into the cold air. It's believed the eruption was caused by an expansion of a lake that sits beneath the glacier. It happened in an unpopulated area, although it did set off tremors across the region. I'll be right back.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, brought to you in part by Aflac. Ask about it at work.
We've talked a lot this year about the powerful effect and growing effect of the internet on the American political system. It's not just about information and the exchange of opinions, it's also about entertainment. NBC's Roger O'Neill tonight on the Jib Jab Nation.
Faster than a political promise.
I have a plan.
More powerful than a campaign ad.
I'm George W. Bush, and I approve this message.
Able to leap from office to office with, "You got mail." It's the internet, stupid, to twist a political phrase that helped change the dynamics of this election. Sometimes edgy.
Near the base of the spine.
Sometimes vulgar.
Better call my friends at Halliburton.
It even made us laugh.
We stay, rule the day, DC land.
But it was how marketing consultant Jodine Dorsey decided who to vote for.
When I do go on the internet, there is a higher trust factor than hearing it from someone else.
The internet became the politician's best friend and worst enemy.
And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House!
Remember the scream that wouldn't end on email, but Howard Dean taught the Democrats how to turn the internet into cash, nearly matching for the first time Republican fundraising. The author of Politics Moves Online, Michael Cornfield, thinks the internet is the new town hall.
It's a meeting place where you can exchange views, ideas, jokes, data, and get together with people not just for discussion but for action.
You could only line the birdcage so often with the newspaper, and throwing the remote at the TV doesn't stop the political know-it-alls. But with this thing, you can take back some controls with a keystroke. And when all the jibs and jabs are heard, this land belongs, just email. Belongs to you and me. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Atlanta.
Oh, and Dick Cheney, too.
That's Nightly News for this Tuesday. The polls are about to close in 6 states. That means our Decision 2004 election coverage is about to begin. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back here in Democracy Plaza, election headquarters in New York for Decision 2004. I'm Tom Brokaw, NBC News. See you in a moment.